Good evening. The news gang is here. 2 years of a handshake and fisticuffs. Who's still in the ring? The system and the deputy. The amazing, astounding facts about the latest release from Harambee House Annex. Also tonight, the reggae beat goes to Nakuru. Watch out for your eardrums. We'll also have the kicker, the punchline, the take, and the angle. Jamila is still away tonight. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a lot has been happening from the annex and out there. I think we just need to start by that statement that the deputy president made at the funeral of the late Sergeant Kipyegon Kenei, where he was talking about some people labda waniue.
I want to tell them they may have the system, they may have whatever they have, but I want to tell them we have God. Pengine waniue mimi, lakini sitarudi nyuma, siwezi kurudi nyuma, kwa sababu Kenya ni ya Wakenya wote. Kenya si ya Wakenya wachache. Vitisho, njama, hizi zote. Kwa sababu ninajua hata yale mambo yanakuja hapa mbele ambayo yamepangwa. But I'm ready for it. Kama mliua huyu ndio mnitishe, mimi nataka niwaambie damu ya huyu itawaandama, hamtapona.
Oh, but this is scary stuff, Linus. I mean, this is coming from the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, and he's saying that there are certain people who are not only desirous of killing him, but they're actually able to do it.
Very serious claims, Joe, because here was the Deputy President, the number 2 in the power hierarchy of this country, saying that his life is essentially in danger and from within. But this must also go down as a very difficult moment for the family. The coffin was right there. Here is the victim. The victim is actually inside the coffin. But we heard the Deputy President speaking and telling everyone at the venue that he is the victim. The DP stopped short of saying he was shot in the chin. He came close to saying that. He came close to saying they were looking for me. I was the target, and they got this.
He actually said that the people who killed him were actually
the same ones
targeting me.
Yes.
It's not Kenei that they were really after.
Now, let's wear the shoes of this family. How does that feel? This is your day to be consoled. You've lost a son. You've lost someone very important in the family. You're going to put him shortly into the soil. And here's the Deputy President doing what he's been very good at, which is converting this into a political platform. And he does it very, very effectively. What to me he was essentially saying is, and the other cruel thing that really came through was the clapping. Who are those clapping? It's a funeral. Do you think the members of the family were clapping that day? That was very, very sad. But here was the DP saying, basically, that look beyond this. There's something greater than this coffin. There's something greater than this funeral. And it is my race to 2022. And you know, later in the speech, you'd hear him saying, I will not be stopped. I'm moving forward. They will not stop me. Basically, it looked quite unkind to the family. Because I'm trying to draw parallels between the DP's speech that day and the same that he made at, say, Bob Collimo's funeral. It was never about him. But it really sits with the culture that is characterizing our politics, where funerals have become platforms of politics, and people do it cruelly. Look, just look at the funerals that happened over the weekend. Politicians will fly in, make their speeches, and leave.
Somebody made a joke that some of them never even get to know who actually died.
Who actually died, yes. And remember, the DP did exactly this. He didn't stay for the entire period. He came and specifically, I think time was made for him to make this speech. He did that and left. Very cruel.
But Francis, some people would say that all be that as it may, but for the deputy president to find it necessary to say such serious things that touch on his very life at a funeral so publicly, that, hey, almost like saying, hey, someone is coming after me, who's going to rescue me? Like, there must be something completely dysfunctional in how the government runs for the deputy president to find it necessary to actually speak about such serious things at a public forum, as opposed to probably resolving it within the government circles or raising it using the channels that one would imagine exist within a functional government.
I did that story, and I picked out three things as I was working on that story. Number one, the concerns that the deputy president raised about his own life and his stay in office. Number one, as Lina says, well, politics aside, but when the deputy president says his life is in danger, in fact, there's a soundbite he says, kifo cha huyu, the death of Kenei, is related to people who are looking for me, so to say.
Actually, we can listen to that soundbite where he was talking about the people who killed Sergeant Kenei.
The one where
those executing this scheme, this elaborate scheme to undermine and destroy my office and ostensibly to stop me using all these schemes, I want to tell them they may have the system, they may have whatever they have, but I want to tell them we have God. Kifo huyu jamaa amekufa ni kwa sababu ya mambo haya yanayozungushwa. Ndio mimi nasema kama imefika mahali hapa, njama inasokotwa, ofisi yangu haina uhusiano wowote na DOD. There is no deputy commander-in-chief. There is only one commander-in-chief. There is no relationship between my office and DOD. There can never be a relationship of procurement of guns around my office. What is this?
Yeah, you see, very fundamental questions that he was asking. What is this? As I was saying, I picked out three things. Number one were the concerns that he was raising about his life, and number two, about his stay in office. But fundamentally, when the deputy president says that the system is being used to undermine him and paint his office in negative light, basically make him look unelectable in 2022, is a very serious concern. So one would ask, is he being undermined as the deputy president or as a presidential candidate in 2022? Those are two distinct questions. But essentially,
he quite touched on both. I mean, he says my office, which I imagine would refer to the office he holds now, but then he's saying they will not stop me. That one would imagine refers to
the duality of the concern. But even as we look at it in this way, there's also an important question that one would ask. If these concerns are serious, as the deputy president says they are, has he raised them with the president? Because if there is a system within government that is working to undermine him, then the head of this government is the president. He is the deputy head of this government. Has he raised those concerns with the president? And if he has, what was the response of the president? If he has not raised these concerns with the president, why has he not? Number two, There is a National Security Advisory Council, NSAC. The Deputy President sits in that council. It includes the President, who is the chair. It includes cabinet secretaries in charge of foreign affairs, defense, internal security, and Inspector General of Police, as well as the Director General in charge of the National Intelligence Service. And of course the Chief of Defense Forces. So if he sits in that team, the highest ranking security organ in our country, and he's raising security concerns about his life, then there's a problem. One, does he attend those meetings? Is he involved in those meetings? Has he raised these concerns?
He did attend one. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Because then it should show you there is a serious dysfunction in government, because it is not an everyday thing that you hear the country's second in command complaining about his state of security and a plan by a system within the same government to stop him using state apparatus from proceeding to his 2022 journey.
Who was he talking to? I mean, like some people would say, "Sisi ni wanyonge, hatuna uwezo."
Right.
Why would he be telling us? I mean, he is the deputy president.
And to be fair, there's context in this country where we have seen high-ranking, members of government who have been killed, who have been assassinated, who have, died under, circumstances. That would warrant that. And who was he talking to is the big question. Was he talking to the president? Because who is this person who runs the system that would be so powerful as to take on none other than the deputy president? Would it be somebody junior to him in the ranking of government? Even if it were, would that person not require sanctioning from somebody higher than the deputy president? How many people rank higher than the deputy president? I mean, those are the questions. And it's all this about who is the system. But also, he did mention some people specifically who he said were out to get him. I don't know if we can play that, Robert. He talked about the DCI being used to fight him, at least on this one. He was a little bit more specific in terms of naming a person who he feels is directly responsible for his political woes, and perhaps indeed others. Ruto on the DCI being used to fight him. That is what I find. And as we get that sound clip, I just want to agree with...
do you note that he said he's being used? I mean, again, referring to some agent apart from the DCI.
And that's what I was saying. Absolutely. Let's listen to that.
Kwa sababu hii njama inaundwa ya kisiasa for political reasons. The DCI is being used to undermine my office, to bring me down, and many of them are not even ashamed to say William Ruto will not be there in 2022, and yet they are walking around.
So let me just wind up my point on that. I think it's very clear who he was speaking to without naming names, and that has been what we have seen in the infighting in Jubilee, where people sort of name others, but it's you go around proxies. But I want to agree with Linus. His concerns about his safety, about political undermining may be valid. This was absolutely the wrong place to do it. I mean, I felt that it was an attempt to make it about himself and not about the man that was lying in the coffin, and perhaps a push for, I knew this man personally, and he did talk about the conversations they had just before. But this was a moment.
He also said that whoever did this thing was desperately trying to draw a wedge between him na jamii yangu. That's what he seemed to be saying. Actually, he was saying that these people, whoever they were, and jamii yangu here, I imagined meant that the Kalenjin community, that actually whoever killed this guy was trying to draw a wedge between him and the Kalenjin community, which was quite interesting statement coming from the deputy president.
And I was just going to say, I think he should have made those remarks after the funeral, like away from that. It was sort of hallowed ground, or the coffin. Exactly.
Maybe flip the argument. Look at the event just before the burial. There was that video played at the DCI headquarters by George Kinoti, the director of criminal investigations. Would he then argue that probably the video was being played to whip up emotions ahead of the funeral. And probably he thought that was the best opportunity to go and say what he knows about this murder and the relationship to his office as well as his 2022 bid. Could it be that he was responding directly to the video that was played, maybe ostensibly to whip up emotions? But number two, let's not lose sight of two things that he said that I think are very important moving forward. That the DCI is being used. So who is using DCI and why? Number two, there's a place he says there is no deputy commander-in-chief.
There's only one.
There's only one. So essentially, it's like, don't ask me, ask the commander-in-chief.
Right.
That's how I look.
Who would typically know about military contracts and that sort of thing. But I think it is important for us to not lose sight of the fact. I mean, we can't sit here and pretend that we do not know that there's a problem in government. I mean, if you look at the way people are relating within that government, if you look at how people are talking at each other, even people who are junior to the DP, the way they talk to him, there's a general dysfunction. So it seems to me that the deputy president is basically on his own in that respect when it comes to what runs government or how government functions. He is basically
outside
the systems and he knows what the system is capable of doing. He's been part of the system before, and therefore when he speaks like this, he's basically speaking to his base and saying, look, these guys have actually removed me from that place where we have always been. And so he's speaking to a different, you would say, a different goal, not just this thing of being in government and whatever. He's looking into the future. He knows that he's going to go back to these people, and he's going to make references to all of these things that he's saying. Remember, I said
that future, Joe, and that future is 2022.
Exactly.
Because the deputy president has been so committed to his plan to run for president in 2022, to the point that almost his current responsibility as deputy president is secondary. The vision is on 2022. I'm going to run for president. And there is a pattern to how he has handled a lot of the challenges or questions that have come about either around governance. And you can remember the issue of Kimarer Aror. The answer that Deputy President gave was immediately political. When it comes to the issue of non-payment of maize farmers, and you remember there were demonstrations in Moy's Bridge and Eldoret, the answers again that he gave were political. Because to his base, he must keep the message that, guys, the kingdom is coming in 2022. Look beyond this. Look beyond Kene. Look beyond maize. Look beyond Aror, Kimarer. It is a stayed-on message kind of call that the deputy president has been very faithful to, especially in talking to the Kalenjin community that it is about 2022. Don't even think about now.
There are people who would wonder when the president hears his deputy speak the way he did at that funeral, does he perhaps pick up the phone and call him and say, hey, what was that about? Like, you haven't told me, or is this what you were telling me about? Like,
thank you for raising that, Joe, because...
what's that? I mean, I would imagine the president would be concerned too.
Right, but the very same day, or was it the day after?
The day after.
Yeah. What did we then see? The president and ODM leader Raila Odinga holding hands. This could not have been more stark for me. That the second in command, second in command says, there is a problem. There is somebody that is out to get me. And perhaps we can have some of that are running. The Gore AFC slideshow.
A football match that was
I'm not saying that. It's just, it was very...
The derby had been scheduled before.
Not a problem. On one hand, you have the deputy president the day before.
The president doesn't attend the derbies any other day.
The derbies
Actually, I think it was the first time he was attending it.
And on the very next day, it's... these two are holding hands and they're enjoying a match. For me, there was that very, very just stark difference in those two pictures.
Some way he made the former PM attend UB40 concert. Maybe now it was
and then, absolutely. And that was what I noted from that. But I was just going to say, I mean, I think perhaps on this table, all of you gents have probably covered, more governments, more administrations than I have. I personally have never seen such level of dysfunction
Yeah.
publicly displayed between senators, between members of the same party, between the DCI and the office of the deputy president. I mean, are we living in the twilight zone? Do I not? It's a very messy and very
veritable
untidy.
Tower of Babel.
Right,
Because you see, even in the Grand Coalition, which was very
It wasn't
noisy,
this bad,
and
I covered that
in
as well.
a very predictable pattern.
Right.
That is to say, you knew that people who had come from the ODM side and were in government
going to say
were going to take a
one
particular
thing.
position, and the
Right.
people who are in PNU at the time
Yeah.
would take a particular position. This one is a free for all.
know.
Anyone takes any kind of position.
And like you said, Joe, people speak disrespectfully to each other. So senators speak disrespectfully of the president. Others speak disrespectfully of the deputy president. Then you hear attacks against the DCI and the DPP. And then you hear the DCI coming in and saying,
the president says he's in a handshake with Raila Odinga, and then there are people who are saying, no, we recognize the handshake of the president, but not the handshake of
There's a very loyal viewer of ours who is saying, but you guys in the media are not acknowledging that prior to the funeral, there was full of innuendo that he or his people or people close to him killed Kenei to conceal the information. Surely he had to respond and defend himself at the very venue.
But I think you acknowledged that a short while ago.
Yeah, granted.
Yeah.
But more importantly is the question of what is the relationship between the president and the deputy president? Because publicly, once in a while, you will see a semblance of like tuko pamoja.
In a very
But it's
long
more
while.
of tulikuwa pamoja. You know, it's more of tulikuwa pamoja than tuko pamoja. And there's no hiding anymore. You see, when we raised these issues previously, we were accused as the media of fanning division in Jubilee, saying things that were not there. But it's out there for everybody to see.
And speaking of that, there is an impeachment conversation that's been going on. Yesterday, we saw people parading themselves and saying, oh, we want this, we don't want the other thing. A very interesting thing. I think we need to take a break, but we can pick up on what is going on with that. And is that impeachment even in the cards? Is anyone saying anything that has not been said up until this point?
Somebody is also asking me to ask Linus to explain what is this system
yes,
or deep state.
And we will come back with that.
And that I'll do.
Yeah.